Take a look at Chapter 9 about incorporating illustrations, musical examples, tables, and figures. This chapter is quite helpful because it starts with a discussion of when you might want to use an illustration, what an illustration might do, how it might enliven your research paper, how to call them out or point to them in the prose of your paper, and then where to put them in the flow of your paper. The most important part is really looking at musical examples. I'd like everyone to have at least one musical example in their research paper. You might have to do this if you don't have existing scores by using a transcription or even making a sketch of what's happening musically on your own, using your own oral skills. But some kind of musical example is very helpful when writing research paper about music, believe it or not. All right, and then we have lots of examples. So one of the things that I'd like to illustrate about these examples is that this first sentence here in the example, that's the prose of the paper. Obviously, it's dramatically cut down to keep the examples very short. But you'll notice that in the prose of the paper, this author is pointing out what to look for in the example. It points to the number of the example. Now, this is an example by Rebecca Clark that I happened to find on IMSLP, and I was able to just take a screenshot from the PDF and then import it into this example, and it looks pretty good. And then look at the bottom here, immediately afterward, the melody plunges dramatically, right? The discussion of the example continues after the example. Think about how much of an example you want to have to illustrate your point. So this discussion starts with a point about the vocal line reaching its high point. That's right here, right at the beginning of the example. And then afterwards, immediately plunging down into this cadence, and it's about this plagal cadence that happens here at the end. So these 4 or 5 bars of this example are just enough to demonstrate exactly what's happening in this piece that's under discussion at this moment. No more, no less. Now, some warnings about grabbing musical examples from PDFs using a screenshot tool or screen capture tool. Notice that I have my clefs here, and I can immediately tell that this is for voice and piano because of the text, because of the grand staff here. Often what happens when you're grabbing bits from a score is that students accidentally cut off the clefs, the key signature, the time signature. So what I end up seeing in the paper is a kind of disembodied, sounds very like, ghostly or otherworldly kind of musical example that I don't know how to interpret because I don't have a clef, a key, a time signature, don't know what the instruments are. So make sure that when you're doing that screen capture that you are either capturing enough so that the reader really knows how to interpret that example, or you go in with your great skills and you cut and paste the clef, key signature and time signature onto the example.